Hi everyone, Cam here from Yes Auto, and today we're going to be driving this thing. It's the new Aston Martin DBX. Now, if you go back 10 years ago, the idea of an Aston Martin SUV would have been considered sacrilege. But the company has fallen on some hard times lately in the financial sense, and it's hoping that the DBX will work a little bit like the Porsche Cayenne did and essentially save the company. And it seems to be working because in early 2021, over 50% of Aston Martin sales were DBXs. So it's proving to be a hugely popular car. What's all the hype about? Well, today we're going to find out. But before I get into the review, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. Now let's start off with the most controversial aspect of the DBX, and it's the way that it looks. Now Aston Martin is known for GTs and sports cars, not SUVs, but I think they've done a superb job with the DBX. It doesn't always photograph that well, but when you see it in person, this thing looks absolutely stunning, and importantly, it looks like an Aston Martin. That's partly thanks to the grille, which it's actually quite old school Aston Martin. A lot of the new cars are experimenting with massive grills or bits of carbon. This keeps it nice and simple, but it still gives the car a real presence. You've also got the vents in top of the bonnet as well, which just look fantastic, particularly when you're driving, because they've got these cool little metal winglets inside of them. Now, when the car's on, you also have LED daylight running lights around the here, which are actually brake ducts. Just gives the car such a cool look when it's on the road. 22-inch wheels as standard, although there are different designs that you can go for if you want to. This is very Aston Martin, and we've got a vent back here as well for aerodynamic purposes that actually works. It's not fake. Fantastic. Bit further back, you have these seamless door handles that you have to pop open to get inside of the car, but it just gives the car a really sleek look. I've actually lowered the car as well, so it's in one of its lowest settings, but you can see just how much clearance there is. It's not like a lot of SUVs today where they're essentially just normal cars that jacked up a little bit. There's 95 millimeters of suspension travel on this, courtesy of 3-chamber air suspension. The back is not entirely to my taste, but hey, looks are subjective. You've got this ducktail back here that is inspired by the Vantage, and again it gives the Aston Martin just a distinct look, but I almost think it's trying a little bit too hard. We have a nice wing up here as well that's got two little channels in it that just looks so elegant, and two meaty exhausts as well. No diffuser back here, but then again this isn't meant to be a super sports car. It is actually meant to go off-road. That's right, the Aston Martin DBX can go off-road, and to demonstrate I've got a pile of junk in front of me that I'm going to try and navigate. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is put it into Terrain Plus, and that increases the ride height by 45 millimeters over the base GT mode. And that will also give us an approach angle of 25 degrees and a descent angle of 27, which is not too bad. And I think that's probably about what I'd have in front. Now the DBX is all-wheel drive, and we've also got torque vectoring over the front wheels, which means the car will modulate the power differently between the front wheels for maximum grip, meaning it's nice and easy to get over the top of this ridge. And we also have hill descent controls, so we can also get down without tearing off into the horizon. Now, there are no big rivers in this abandoned airfield that I'm in, but if you find one, the DBX has a wading depth of 50 centimeters, which is pretty damn deep. Now, not only can the DBX go off-road, but it's actually quite practical, because in the back here, we've got a cavernous 632-litre boot, which is a little bit more than what you get on a Lamborghini Urus, and quite a bit more than the boot in a Bentley Bentayga. And it's convenient as well, because you've got a little button here that lowers the rear air suspension, so if you've got a dog, it can easily get in the back. And speaking of dogs, you can get something called the Pet Package, which not only adds a little guard down here, so when a dog's trying to get in the back, you can flap it down so it doesn't get claw marks all over your paint. But you also get a divider between the boot and the cabin, as well as a little hose to wash them down when they get all muddy. Another option is the event seating, which puts 2 chairs at the back here so you can sit out the back of your DBX and watch something like polo or cricket, but not football. Even the bonnet of the DBX is a work of art because it's this clamshell style design. And underneath it is this thing, a 4-litre twin-turbo V8, producing 542 brake horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because this motor is also found in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage and also the DB11 V8. And you'll also find it in a lot of AMG products because it comes from Mercedes AMG. In fact, Aston Martin works so closely with AMG that the former AMG boss, Tobias Moers, is now the CEO of Aston Martin. Now, the motor's connected up to a 9-speed automatic gearbox, which sends power to all 4 wheels for a 0 to 62 time of 4.5 seconds. Really quick. And it's on par with the Bentley Bentayga V8, which has the same 0 to 62 time, if not a bit more torque. It doesn't quite match its rival, the Lamborghini Urus, though, which has 641 brake horsepower and a lot more torque, and will go from 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds. But it's also more expensive, and at the end of the day, they're all freaking fast. Let's just jump straight in then. How much does a DBX cost? Well, on paper, you're looking at £158,000, which puts it just above the Bentley Bentayga V8 and just below the Lamborghini Urus. But in reality, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because that's assuming that you order your DBX with no optional extras, and there are many, many, many options to choose from when buying a DBX. Not only do you have things like tech packs and convenience packs, but you also need to consider things like paint and wheel options. And there's also something that Aston Martin offers, which are kind of options by Q, which is its special operations team. So if you want special colour options or special trim levels, then you're going to be forking out some serious money for your DBX. Now, you can find deals on new and used DBX by heading over to yesauto.com, and while they look a little bit more expensive than a base DBX on paper, you need to have a look and see what options they're on, because DBXs tend to hold their values quite well, but you might find that someone has spent £20,000 or £30,000 worth of options and you're maybe getting a 20 grand discount. So while the DBX is quite expensive, it really does feel like a properly expensive product, because not only is there leather everywhere, it's a really high quality leather. We've got this gorgeous leather steering wheel, and it looks so much nicer than the wheel that you get on some of Aston Martin's sports cars, which are kind of squared off. This is a typical round wheel, and it looks and feels spectacular. We've also got leather all over the dashboard here and around the sides. Again, gorgeous, as well as the seats. Now, this is the perforated and quilted leather, which is an optional extra, but it just feels absolutely fantastic and certainly worth the extra money. We've also got wood trim around the center console here. Now, it does feel a little bit wobbly at the sides, and there is a pretty big panel gap down here, but you're nitpicking really, because overall the fit and finish in this car is absolutely sublime. However, the biggest problem I have is this kind of mess down here, where you've got a touchpad to control the infotainment screen and a dial to control the infotainment screen. So if you're driving along and want to rest your hand here and use the dial, you might find yourself activating the touchpad instead, and a lot of the time they do exactly the same thing. Why not just have one or the other? It's just really complicated. And you have to use them as well, because the screen here isn't a touch panel. It's all controlled through a physical dial, which makes sense when you're on the road, because it is easier to use a dial when on the road than keep looking and leaning over to use your screen. But when I'm stood still, I can't move the screen at all with my fingers. I have to use this, which feels a little bit prehistoric. As does the software on here. It's actually an old Merc system that's been reworked to look like an Aston Martin. It's very simple and quite rudimentary. Not the end of the world. Again, most people just plug in their iPhone or Android phone and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which works absolutely fine on here. But if for whatever reason you're using the base system, just know it's quite laggy, a bit jerky, and I'm not the biggest fan. The good news is, though, that now that Aston Martin and AMG are working closer together, you should find that the latest version of Merc's infotainment software, or MBUX, should be ported over to the new Aston Martins going forward. So if tech's your thing, you might want to wait for the next generation of DBX to get that upgrade. Last little gripe I want to touch on is the start-stop button being up here on the top of the dashboard along with the drive selectors. Now, it's nice when you get in the car for the first time, but when you just want to get in and drive, it's a pain to just keep leaning over to the top here. I just want to switch between park and drive and reverse. Down here, it'd be much more simple. These might be the best rear seats I've ever been in because they are so ridiculously comfortable, and this leather is astonishing. It's so smooth and soft, and I just think if I was being chauffeured around, I would fall asleep in the back here within an instant. It is a wonderful place to be. Loads of leg room, loads of headroom, even though we've got a panoramic roof. Oh my god, even the leather on the headlining is just superb. What a gorgeous place to be back here. Got a little bit of storage behind the driver's seat as well, so if you want to put a magazine or a newspaper while you're being chauffeured around, you can do. And you can also have it at the perfect temperature as well, because you've got your own climate controls. And if you're running low on juice, you've got a couple of USB ports back here too. But overall, the DBS really is a fantastic place to be in the back. So we know the DBX can handle a grassy, hilly car park, but does it feel like an Aston Martin on the road? Yes, it absolutely does. There are different driving modes that we've got in here. We've already covered Terrain Plus. There's also Terrain as well, which raises the ride height a little bit, but not quite as much as what you get on Terrain Plus. But what I've got it in at the moment is the standard mode called GT. First, there's the ride comfort, and we're running on air suspension at the moment, which is just incredibly comfortable. Yes, it gives us a lot of freedom when it comes to ride height, so if we needed to jack the ride height up a bit to go off-road, we can do. But it is also really good at just getting rid of any bumps in the road. It just feels like a really lovely car to drive, even on terrible roads. And you know that horrible bang sound that you get when you drive over a rut in the road? Well, on a DBX, it's pretty much silenced. Of course, a good GT in 2021 has got to have some decent driverless tech. And in here, you've got the standard stuff like lane keep assistance and also adaptive cruise control. So I'm doing 70 at the moment. There's a lorry coming up in front of me, and I know that if I get too close, the car will start slowing down, which is what we're doing at the moment. It just means that you can churn through miles on a French motorway down to Monaco without having to worry about ploughing into the back of anybody. Now, the DBX may be ultra comfortable in GT mode, but when I shove it in sport, the V8 starts to really sing. God, this is great in the corners, but I'll get onto that in a minute. So much grip. Just a gorgeous sound. And it feels like just the right amount of power. Again, something like a Lamborghini Urus, well over 600 horsepower, but in here with our 542, it just feels like the perfect amount, because you never get that horrible shove when you put your foot down. It just feels like it's got endless power and endless torque without being uncomfortable, and that's exactly what you want from a GT. You want it to be fast, but you also want to be laid back at the same time. Another thing that is just hugely impressive with the drive of the DBX is just the way it steers. I mean, this is a 2.2 ton car, but it handles like a sports car. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic there. I really am so surprised of how fantastic this is to drive. And that's partly because we've got an active anti-roll system that's powered by a 48 volt hybrid system. And what that does is it keeps the car ultra flat in the corners. So even with all that weight, you're not leaning over that much. Yes, there's a small amount of lean, but nothing really compared to its rivals. It just feels razor sharp. So I've got a lot of good things to say about the DBX. What am I not too keen on? I would say essentially it kind of comes down to nitpicking, really. First of all, MPG isn't great. You're looking at about 20. With a mix of motorway and town driving, you're looking at around about 20 MPG. You might be able to eke out a little bit more if you're just sticking to the motorway, but not much. Other things I'm not a fan of, the gearbox can be a little bit dim-witted. It can sometimes hold on to gears longer than I would like it to. So, which is probably not great for fuel economy either. I feel like there are going to be some big changes coming in at Aston soon. I know that they are basically going through the whole company to try and improve it. And I think we could see that on a facelifted DBX, at least with an improvement on interior tech, because that's kind of what lets it down. You're driving a car that costs close to £160,000. It's going to cost you more when you add some add-ons on, but as soon as you start using the tech, it all kind of falls apart, really. So once they get that upgraded, maybe improve some of the build quality here and there, this DBX, fantastic. It's one of the best performance SUVs you can buy. It really is superb. So that's it on the DBX. It is a sports SUV that does a super job of not only being a Grand Tourer, but yes, it can go off-road. Not that I think many DBX owners will be doing that. But be sure to head over to yesauto.com to check out all the new and used deals we've got on DBXs, because if the price seems a little bit steep now, maybe you might be able to pick up a deal online.